Leon, good morning. How are things with you?
Yeah, good, Gary. Good, good.
Excellent, excellent. It looks as if it's quite nice and sunny in Hamilton today.
Definitely is, mate. We don't mind seeing the sun. We've had a bit of rain, so yeah, no, it's good. It's good to
Brilliant.
be here. So
Excellent, excellent. Leon, question or first question really. You've been in the industry and selling real estate for about 12 years right now. How did you start? What got you into real estate and how did you start in real estate?
yes, real estate. I've always had a passion for property and real estate myself. So before real estate, I was actually importing cars. So I was in the car industry for about 10 or so years prior to that. So we were wholesaling from Japan. But what got me into property was pretty much property because I loved it. But I started off working for Harcourts at the time, and it was just really from a manager there that really he saw something that I didn't at the time,
Yeah.
and he said, "Look, come and I'll train you, and we'll do that." And hey, it did take me 6 or so months to decide that, but once I did, yeah, that was all on from there. So it was a good decision back then.
Brilliant. And were you always in Hamilton? Did you start real estate in Hamilton or start
Yeah,
somewhere else and then?
yeah, I did. Yeah, Waikato's been home for the last since 1998. So for me, it was a good start. I was probably very young in the sense I was 27, I think, when I came into the industry. A lot of others and a lot of the folks were about 40 plus. So me and another guy, we started off quite young. So we felt like fresh bees in what we were doing. But hey, that mixed it all up. So it was good.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. And so starting at a young age, what did you do when you start? What sort of activities? How did you build your business?
It was really unusual, very different to the way it is now.
Yeah,
But back then, it was all paper. It was, less emails, less texts, and it was all belly to belly. We used to call it, as in face to face type
mm,
contact. So everything was around flyer dropping, door knocking, all the old school stuff, and some of that stuff still is today. But I think it's back then we just had to do everything and anything and be consistent at it.
yeah,
And then it was the training amongst that. So where I was, they gave good training. It's just that you had to do a lot of the work, and we had to start. I remember manager coming in, gave me a desk. There was a phone. There was a white pages. There was a yellow pages, and pretty much he said, tapped me on the back, and he said, "Good luck." And I'll never forget it. And it was that was it. And I remember looking around and thinking, okay, all right. But the dialogue in the office with people that have been there 10 years, 15, 20, I just sat and listened. I was like a sponge, and I just sponged all that information
yeah,
and then started to mimic people in the sense of going, okay, well, if they're successful, that's what I want to do. So that
yeah,
was how I got into it, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So you really started doing what most people don't like to do, the cold calling, the knocking on doors, things that most people try to avoid.
Yeah,
Did you find it easy to do it? Is it something
sure.
that you just pushed yourself into doing?
Yeah, I did. I had a young family at the time. I had a mortgage we'd just built, and so had a wife and 2 kids, dog and white picket fence, as they say, and so I was the only breadwinner in our family.
Mm,
So right there, we didn't have an excuse not to do well. And I remember just before getting my license, I was that eager that I just wanted to get let out of the gates. And I did get an appraisal on my first day, but I did get it 3 days before getting my license. So I got raked the knuckles for that. But it was, but I was just so keen and eager to go, and I think it was all about attitude and determination. And I think, and this isn't a cliche thing, but it was just that I just joined it knowing that I wasn't going to fail because I
yeah.
couldn't fail. And
Yes.
so when you've got bills to pay, you've got kids, you've got requirements, you don't even take sick days off. That's how it
Yeah.
was back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so working really hard. What are some of the things that you did and possibly still doing that you think contributed to you becoming so successful?
I remember going through the training process of and don't get me wrong, it's needed, but I remember going through the training process with Harcourts, and they were quite tight on a structure as such, with meeting people at open homes and doing the whiteboard and the clipboard thing where people came through open homes that you would take the number and just be like a security guard at the door, right? So I quickly adapted that I didn't want to do that, and so I just went against everything that was told and asked of me to do, but I just found a recipe that worked for me, and thankfully it worked. So I just felt that, you know, and I still do it today, is that how would I want to be treated if I went to an open home, and how would I want to be treated if I done real estate with a real estate person? So I adapt all of that, but I think people now pay you for knowledge, and that's what they're paying for you for. But back then it was all about just learning, and it was tough. It was really tough, but because you were going up against people that have been in the industry 15, 20 years. And here you were 2 weeks into it, getting knocked over because some other person had been in 5 years and they would be taking the listings. So it was tough.
Yeah. So how did you face that challenge of going in and being young and people telling you, hey, you're too young, or other salespeople saying, hey, look, don't worry about Leon, he's fresh, he doesn't know anything. How did you handle that?
Yep, I really didn't have a lot of friends, to be fair, in the game like that, and I didn't, and that's probably the best thing that I could say at the time, because I wasn't there to be liked, and I was just there to do the business and do it to the best that I possibly could, so I can start getting income generated for my family. So that became priority one, and then I did do a few things like phone call and cold calling, and then I started paying other people to do cold calling as well. It went down really well, but started getting listings on the board, and so, you know, you had other people coming up to you going, oh, how are you getting the listings? Are they getting fed to you? But I was getting them all. But one thing I did learn very quickly is that it was easy to get listings on my side. It was, but it was hard to get the listing at the right price, and work your systems away from there. So your days on market were much less, but that came with experience. It just meant that I had a whole lot of listings that I couldn't sell, that I had to then quickly try and figure out, how do I then structure this to make it work so it's sellable.
Yeah. And how did you adjust, if you don't mind me asking, and if it's not something confidential, how did you learn, and what did you do to adjust to get the prices right?
I learned by losing them to other companies that sold them, and that's the bottom truth to it all, is that when you go and do something and you lose something and it costs you money, you certainly learn real fast. And I think people are scared of failing, and I think failure in people is just not what we're taught. But it's good to fail, but it's how many times you fail, which is the most important bit, is that you've got to learn from your failures. And I think from that point on, I remember when I lost a couple to being overpriced, and then straight away my tack of appraising the property completely changed. I then had lunches and dinners with high performers that were in our block, and gee, their recipe was completely different to mine. So I just chucked everything out that I had and adapted what they had and just worked it better. That's pretty cool. And then it did. And if you change your dialogue, because I say to the new guys now that come in, if something's not working, stop and change it straight away and adapt it to something that's better. And it works better.
Yeah. Cool. And so you've obviously had quite a few failures and to become the successful salesperson that you are right now. And now you have your own team, you have people working with you and working under you. When did you decide to make that decision to build a team around you, and why?
Sure. I think, like today, if I was to start real estate now, I think people say, don't get a PA, or don't do a team, or don't do this, don't do that. I think if you go out strong and you start to realize that you can list and you can sell, then the only way you're ever going to grow is by building a team. I'm quite OCD in a lot of things, and one of them is employing people, in the sense of, like, I don't employ them for straight away for being the best at what they do for selling. I would normally take someone that is that is nurtured well, got good qualities, morally, ethically, and then work on that. Because then if you've got the base right, you'll normally always, because a lot of the time is that the saying goes in our industry is that, you know, you actually spend more time at work with your colleagues than you do your wife or your husband and such. So it's one of those things where, yeah, so you've got to get that bit right. And I've had my other listing colleague, Sinead Lewis, that's been with me for a while now, about 5 years. She started off at a buyer's agent, as a buyer's agent, and then we just started to build the team, and then we got Pauline Hope, our PA, on board, and we run a small team, but it's a small, tight and team that does the numbers, yeah. So we do all right.
Yeah. So in your team, everybody has a specific role that they do, or would you go in and do different things? Everybody does everything.
Yeah, sure. We've got allocations to our roles as such, like well, Sinead's moved over now towards being a listing agent, so rather than a buyer's agent as such, and that's simply because we just want to work the stock better, and we've got Pauline who does all the weekly reports, and she generates the back end stuff, and it's really important that someone that you do employees that you can work that back end stuff, because then you're only as good as what the front end stuff looks like. So otherwise you will never deal with volume. So from a single point of view, you know, a single salesperson might be able to deal with 5 listings before they start to get really snowed in with paperwork. And to be fair with you, there's no money sitting at your desk doing paperwork.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you've kind of transitioned your business over the years, isn't it? From doing ordinary real estate, and now you specialize a little bit more on mortgages, on estates, on working with trusts. How does that differ from doing what is ordinary people's real estate?
Real estate, yeah, sure. Well, the fundamentals are the same, but like with mortgages, they're very different. Like we're dealing with the banks and we're dealing with financial parties. So the emotional side of things is taken out, and it's all about getting a result for the banks and trying to better the scenario. And I'll tell you what, you need to have very good people relation skills when you're dealing with mortgages. It's not easy as what some people think. Like the paperwork's just probably about 55, 60 pages long that we send to the banks and get it all sorted. So it's quite analytical, but it's very detailed. And with the states as well, like people are paying you a good commission to be able to get the best result. But that's still the same with real estate in general itself. Like our residential vendors expect the same thing. You know, I've still yet to have a vendor say to me, "Hey, Leon, can you sell this for the cheapest price?" Never ever heard it. And it's always that they want the best, and the reason why they get you in is to do the best. And so I've always held that from day one. And like I say to a lot of people, and buyers, I'm quite straight with as well, is that buyers will always become a vendor at some stage, but it's the vendors that pay us to get the best money. So that's why we do what we do. Yeah.
And then do you find, because mortgages are much more business, there's less emotions dealing with from the vendor side, estates to some degree as well, trust as well, it's more dealing with business. Is it colder? Obviously what you aim to do is the same thing, get the best results, but is it easier people dealing with business comparing with ordinary person, which will be a lot more emotional, or do you find it?
Sure. I think there's two bits on that, which is one, which is your vendors are definitely emotionally attached with the property, so they're looking at the best result, where the banks still have to be seen to be getting the best money in the market, and that's what we do. But it's more on the analytics of things, of going, okay, well, what's the feedback being? What are people saying? And how you represent a property, meaning that with a mortgagee, there's a lot of disclosure around that everyone's got to do their due diligence prior to purchasing, because they hold they don't hold the same responsibilities as what the true vendor does. So and there's only a selective amount of people that can buy mortgagees. So it's very different, because by buying in mortgagees, you're basically taking on quite a bit of risk. And let's say if someone's in the property and you sell the property and it's mortgagee, it's up to that seller to remove them from the property or to take it over from there. So it can get quite tricky, and dealing with even tenants or the vendor as such can get quite dangerous at times. So we've just got to tread carefully. But there's a recipe that we stick to, and it works. And so the banks normally come back because we've got that recipe down to a peg.
Yeah, good. So final question. We started with you starting and being fresh into the industry, and everything is paper-based and knocking on doors and making phone calls, and the industry has changed, and now there's a lot more technology involved.
Sure.
Are there some things that you're seeing, some trends, some things that you're going to start implementing into your business from a technological aspect?
Yeah, we started that. So I've been with Ray White for about 3 years, and since we've been here, we've changed all of our systems, and it's worked for us. We did see a wave about 3 years ago where Facebook, social media, everything was taken over. And look at the way we're doing business now. You're up in Auckland, I'm in Hamilton. We can see each other, and business is done this way. And so I'm a big believer in this, is that if you're still doing real estate like you were 5 years ago, 6 years ago, even 10 years ago, then you're definitely out of the market. And you will get, I talk quite real in the sense of I don't try and butter anything up, but in our market at the moment, you will get taken out if you just go with that mentality that you give the business card over and go, yeah, I think the property's worth this, and you walk off thinking you're going to get the business. You'll be very much mistaken on that. So everything now is down to facts and figures, and how I always say when I go into an appraisal, anyone can sell a house. Like, they can put a for sale sign out their house, and they can be private sellers if they wish. What they're paying me to do on my team is to market the property. That's the value that we hold. So I think if you've got to know your expertise and what you deal in, and so when you get to the table, it flows. It becomes like a dialogue, and that's what people want to. That's who they want to sell with. Someone with energy and someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, brilliant. Excellent. Leon, thank you so much for your time. I know that you're extremely busy and probably running out again for a few more appointments and negotiation. So really appreciate your time, and we'll have a chat later on.
Good on you. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it, mate. Cheers. See ya.